All right, Jillian, welcome. How are you feeling?
Hello, I'm feeling excellent.
Thank you. This is your third time being part of a Startup Grind Chicago event. The previous two times, though, was as a judge for a pitch competition. So now we get to finally, after all this time, like hear your actual story, which we've been wanting to do for so long. So I got introduced to Jillian probably like about a year ago through your partner at Exit Quotient Ventures, Ruben Levinson, who's been a friend of mine. He's also the chapter director for Startup Grind Lansing. So knowing him for several years, he was like, hey, got to introduce you to Jillian. She's in Chicago. And since then, we've been friends. I think, anyway, we've been friends.
Absolutely.
Thank you for corroborating that in front of a live audience. So it's great to have you, and actually, and even as I was like researching what to ask you, like I was learning a lot more about your journey, that because we've never really gotten the chance to like sit down and have this kind of a chat.
I just show up and do what he asked me to do.
Yeah. So let's start with your founder journey and kind of work into the whole exit process from there. But you started the Barre Code. This is back in 2010. You had a co-founder, Ariana, I believe was her name. Is that right?
Yep.
All right. You and a co-founder start the Barre Code. It becomes this big fitness franchise, and boutique fitness is like blowing up around this time. And all these different modalities of fitness are happening as a result of that. So for everyone who does not, actually, let's pull the audience first. Raise your hand if you know what Barre is as it pertains to working out.
Look at that.
Good on the room. There are a few people who don't know, though. So let's make sure everyone's brought up to speed here. What is a Barre workout? What is Barre as a form of exercise?
So the Barre specifically is leveraging the ballet bar, and it's centered around isometric movements. But for the Barre Code, there was a pun on words. We went beyond the bar and offered cardio, strength, and restoration. So we did have heavy weights, total body workout. We also had yoga style, stretching, etc. So it was a women's fitness space, and the Barre Code was the symbol. So the actual Barre Code was our symbol, which was buying into yourself. So the differentiator was really us. At the time, my why. Can I go to my why? My why for starting the Barre Code started a long time ago. So my passion was music and dance, and that's what I love to do. So growing up, I was on the pom team, and I taught summer camps, etc. But my family, it was always, education first, then do what you love. And I didn't know what that meant. And back when, I'm going to age myself, but back when I was growing up, like I didn't even know what the word entrepreneur meant, right? So I went to school, followed suit, became an engineer. While I was at Michigan State, I was also president of my sorority, getting my degree, and completely lost self-confidence, didn't really know what I was meant to do, what it was all for. And so I turned back to my passion. And I really struggled also with body image, which a lot of women do in college. So once I graduated early. I started working at Accenture in business consulting. And I started to dive back into my passion, just using music and fitness and dance and motion to feel good from the inside out. And I recognized that there was this need not only for a great workout, but also for other women to feel what I was missing as well, that they are whole as they are, and that we all come in different shapes, sizes, and we are all individually perfectly unique and beautiful, and that we need to start celebrating what's on the inside and not what's on the outside. And that's
snaps for that.
That's all I needed to hear. And so the business was really born as an outlet for me to teach myself how to feel about myself by helping others feel that way. And I met my business partner, Ari, through our now husbands, but at the time we were single, and we were invited to her house for a New Year's Eve dinner, and I didn't know her at all. And we had place cards on our dinner table, and it was like, what are your goals for 2010? And at the time I was already almost up for partner or senior manager partner track at Accenture. I'd been there for a decade, making a lot of money. And I said, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to start a fitness business. And at the time, I thought it was just going to be a side hustle, just something for myself. I had broken up an engagement. I was single. I was living in the city. I had traveled and lived in different countries, and finally just asked partners to keep me local in Chicago. And so I said it out loud with some non-zero liquid courage. It's some real champagne at the time. And I said, I'm going to start this fitness business. And she looked across the table and said, can I do it with you? I said, sure. We cheers glasses. The next day, January 1st, this is not a joke. I'm not fabricating anything. On January 1st, she called me up and said, are you serious about the conversation we had last night? I said, absolutely. She's like, I'm coming over. She came over. I taught her a bar class. We spent the entire day and evening, like, up till 3 a.m, talking about our ailments as women and the struggles that we both have gone through. And there was similarities, but very different. Like, she was super skinny and people would make fun of her. Like, there's just all these, she had a hard time because she had really long hair and she was in med sales. Like, so we were just sharing all these things, and we came up with our mission literally that day. And then 6 months later, we opened our first studio just a block off at 435 North LaSalle, and in a little basement space that we had a vision of making a home for other women. And back then there was no digital marketing. Like, there was nothing, available to.
Facebook ads probably came out like later that year.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, we didn't have anything. And we didn't use Facebook ads for many years because it was just such word of mouth. It was, people just wanted it and wanted more and wanted to come to the energy and the space that we were creating. So after that 6 months, we opened our first studio, went to the second, went to the third, went to the fourth, went to the fifth, went to the sixth, and then started franchising and taking it on the road.
So I think a lot of times when we hear about like a company's success, and you'll often hear this if anyone listens to like the How I Built This podcast, it'll be like, yeah, like we did this, and then and then we got like 200 customers, and then we had 1,000, and then we expanded into this. But a lot of entrepreneurs, and I think many in this room, are trying to figure out their first like 10 customers. Mm-hmm. In your case, you had a physical location, but was it just like the first class, you just like put a grand opening sign out and people showed up? Like, how did you market that first class?
We did everything wrong at first. So I'd say like the first week we opened up with like 10, boutique fitness wasn't really around. We had a class every hour on the hour, and it was like me and her. We were dying. Like, just trying to teach classes for like one person. I would be like, oh my gosh, like just dying. And then the one person would feel awkward. So she would come in with a hat and be like, hey, I'm here. Like pretend she was a customer. I mean, you fake it till you make it. But so the first, like, I'd say the first couple of weeks, we had no idea what we were doing. But the one people, the individuals that came in, we made them smile and feel good and not feel awkward that they were the only one. They were like our best friend. And they would tell more people. And so within a month, it was like all these businesses here, they were coming at lunch hour with their girlfriends. It was wild. So it took off. It was like old school marketing, right? But now in this day and age, it really starts with just your purpose and why. I will tell, I've met so many different entrepreneurs. You cannot make it in this game by just chasing the win and chasing the money. It will never work. You might as well just go get a job, ride the corporate ladder and get yourself a paycheck, right? And it won't work. There has to be a greater soul purpose. And I had the fortunate opportunity to be the commencement speaker at Michigan State 2 years ago after I had sold the business. And it was such a full circle moment because at any point in your life, you can change. And I can assure you that the cliche of the joy in the process, like the journey, it is absolutely 1,000 trillion% yes. Like, I mourned the business because of the fun and the lives that I touched. The paycheck doesn't do it. Material things will never fulfill the inside. And I was in a book. Does anybody know EOS here? Anybody familiar with
Entrepreneur Operating System?
Well, so a gentleman, Gino Wickman, who founded EOS. It's a very large company and uber successful man. He wrote a book called Shine, and then I had my stories in there as well. That at the height of my career is when I really started to do all of this deep inner work, because everything from an external perspective looked like I had it all. I had the family, the kids, the amazing career. I had the Forbes. I had the Wall Street Journal. I had everything you can imagine I had. And there was a void. And it goes back to my why. It was self-love. It's loving you and the inner work. And that is really what success is. It's not the exit. It's that. So at the end of the day, if you don't do that work and you get a paycheck or a payday, you will feel this void. And Gino Wickman, there's so many entrepreneurs in that book that talk about this, that it's not the end. And you don't know it until you arrive there. And then you realize how lonely it is, because everything you did and all that you built and all that you poured your heart into, was the real richness, right? Would I change anything? No, because now it's on to the next and you can continue to change. And I knew I was done. I was done with that stage of my life. But if you can understand that while you're climbing, you will look back on it and you will love all of it. Every ugly piece of it, you will love and never want to change. I wish somebody told me that, because I didn't really have the entrepreneur guidance, because I didn't have it in my network, and we were so laser focused. And I was actually helping build the MSU Burgess Institute Entrepreneurship Program. It was all new, in that decade. So I'll stop there, but yeah.
I want to make sure is the mic on.
I don't know. I kept thinking
No, I think it's
There we go.
There it is. Yeah. Okay.
There. I was like, I'm like, my ears are really muffling.
No, you projected well enough that I couldn't tell.
I'm an instructor. I can be like, yes. I can take it. Mics break all the time. Believe me.
Okay, so in this journey, you get this to 40 plus studios. You're Midwest and beyond Midwest, or
yeah, we were
so around the country. You've got 200 plus instructors now that are underneath the Barre Code banner, but you do scale this through a franchise model, which is one way to go to market, right? And everyone who's trying to get that traction, it's all about your distribution strategy. There is a certain amount of franchise model. It ladders up to you, but you don't have the same control as if it's like you doing it yourself or them being wholly your employees. So can you talk about that decision to do franchising versus just continuing to open up locations yourself or with your own internal team? And then what is that like to have to cede control?
Yeah, I had two completely different aspects of the business. We had corporate, which was fully owned and operated by ourselves. And then we had the franchise entity. And I would say they're vastly different paths. We did not raise capital because I had already been in, a profitable working arrangement with Accenture, and I had my own money to put in, which was not a lot. We started each with $20,000, so we put $40,000 into the business, and grew it to what it was. But what was really interesting, the franchising model came to us because we didn't know about raising. I didn't have that expertise or understanding or know anybody in the venture space, so it wasn't an option. And what we kept getting was leads, organic leads, individuals, women that didn't want to leave Chicago because they didn't want to leave the Barre Code, right? So they're like, I'm not going to take this job because I can't imagine you in my life. And we're like, this is counterproductive because we want you to be all you can be. Go take the job. So we started that way, and that had its ups and downs. There is no clear direct path, which we all know. There's just highs and lows, and you're going to make your best choices. And the choices you make when you're where you are, you make your best choice, right? And if it's the wrong choice, I hate to say wrong because nothing's wrong. You're going to get you back onto the path you need to be on. But if you diverge a little, it's because then you have to learn something more. There's something about your soul or your self or a lesson that you need to learn. And so that's another great way, with the leaders that I work with, I always think of, the storms or, the falls as fins, failed winds. And you want lots of fins because you're just going to get smarter and tighter. And I was just talking to this woman earlier about hindsight's 2020. If I could go back again, I'd rule the world, right? But but then, you know, it's like, do you really want to go through that all again? You know, seasons change, times change, and your purpose evolves, you know?
Yeah. So. There is, and I've heard this a lot, that like because you know, you got this to an 8-figure revenue company. And I've heard a lot that like, hey, getting to the first million is way different than once you get beyond $1 million to 10, and then going above 10 is even more. So how would you characterize like the difference either in the company or even just like your own mindset as you were in that 1 to 10 or 0 to 1 to 1 to 10 to 10 up?
This is like a question you have to remember, because I had to learn it the hard way. Every stage of the company requires a different leader and a different leadership skill set, if that makes sense. So the first million is the hustle grind, push it, do it. I will work around the clock and make it happen. You wear 75 hats and you complain about none. And it's all about, you are the best at everything. And I think that's the level you need to be at for the first mill. When you cross over that, it's about letting go of control, which is also very hard for entrepreneurs. They get into their ego and also their knowingness that no one is gonna ever do it better than you. It's true, right? But you have to train the people, and you have to let go of control, and you have to trust in the people. And then from there, it's scaling the people, right? So you have to learn how to fire quickly and hire slow. And that's another, these were all lessons that took years for me to figure out. Especially, I would like to say women are very, especially in a business that's women empowerment, it was very hard to fire or let go of anyone. And just the culture, right? But those are the key aspects. It's almost like if you can vision board out the style of leader that is required in your business at each stage and then become that. And you have to continue to look at that. What does that look like? Because you become a new version of yourself. And, you know, and that's how I approach my life now is every stage of my life and every new position I'm taking or new desire or role as a mom or challenges with my children, you know, you have to first envision who you want to be in that space, you know, and how you want to show up. And if you're gonna not stay course all the time because we're human, but if you can at least understand the type of leader that could actually get there, develop it, write it down. Just like we do a customer profile. You know your customer like your back your hand. You need to know the leadership qualities that you need to hold to lead the team to a successful exit, or to continue to grow the culture of the company, or to continue to grow the culture of the brand. I still, this day, you know, get so many emails and people reaching out to me about missing the barcode. And it's amazing because we left that imprint on who they are. And that's what you want to do, right? And you got to stay true to that. Stay true to your mission, your vision, and how you can help your people grow, right? Commit to the growth of the individual. Cheers.
Brought to you by Riot Pop. And Snowflake. Any kind of fitness business is a very tough business to run and a business model to succeed in. I'm a part-time yoga instructor, so I have like ancillary like viewpoints into this.
Yeah.
You know, for the last decade I have. Arguably the hardest era for any kind of fitness brand was the pandemic. Everything closes. Your entire business model is people showing up in person to a class, right? And then there was like the weird, like you can reopen and people can be there, but you can't proctor a class. They could just be like people like floating in the studio on their own. And then there was online classes and all this. So through this, you know, Barre Code did have to contract and shut down a couple studios. When you were in that phase, first off, I'm curious, like what was going through your head when you find out you have to just basically cease operations within a matter of like 48 hours? And then as you had to close a couple, did you have this moment of like, it's all gonna like collapse on us, like we're done, or was it just like it's only a couple and we're good?
Oh no, we were a mess. There's a funny story. So I have 4 children, and I was pregnant with Ari and I, my business partner. One of the most proud thing I am about my business is the relationship I still have with my business partner. You hear so many partnerships that go south. And again, if you keep the people first and you do it when you really truly value them, the sky's the limit. And she's still my best friend. So when the pandemic hit, we had joked around about having children together. We wished we did. And she carried a lot of the load in the beginning because I had 2 kids prior to her having her 2. And then I had my 3rd. And then we got pregnant, and our kids, mine was, it was a beautiful surprise. And we were due 2 weeks away from each other in June. And we were planning a month. We were planning my first ever maternity leave for a month. And then the pandemic hit. And it happened, pandemic hit March, and I was due, I had my son in July, and she was due in June. And so I had 4 kids, homeschool, masks, mess, every studio shut down. Some women that just put $350,000 in a build out, some of our owners were like 50, 60 years old, who were scared shitless. And we had to deal with all of this. It was an absolute mess. And then reopening when we could, with like 2 people on dots with masks, and then pay the people to come in with masks. I mean, it was a nightmare. You couldn't script anything more, except the one time in the midst of the pandemic, my mom called me, and she is more of a worrywart. And so I'm like used to her calling me about something. And I never watched the news. And she's like, Jill, you have to turn the news on. I'm like, why? She's like, I think the Barre Code's on fire. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I'm like, what are you talking about? And
growth is great. We're on fire.
Yeah. No, the Michigan Avenue building was on fire, which was wild. So it was the pandemic. Then that happened. There was just so much. So much that we had to laugh. That was also, we used humor sometimes, Ari and I, to get through things where you're crying so hard you're laughing. Like, what the fuck do we do? But then it comes back. You know, it's amazing how the community like came together, and that's why what we built was so special. The brand was a family, and so when all the studios were shut down and we had to pivot to online, that's why, I mean, big chains never recovered. And we just leaned on that community and that culture that we created to be the safe space for all the uncertainty in all of our customers' lives, and stayed true to that. And by the grace of the universe, source, God, whatever you choose to fill in the word, we made it through. And we didn't, we had these rules, like you give yourself a moment to feel the sadness, to get angry, feel all the feelings, right? Get it out of your nervous system. And then it's about, okay, what do I do today? How can I show up? And then valuing where you show up, making sure that value, like the greatest value you can bring, you knock that check mark off that day, and then that's it. And we did, and we came back. Were we exhausted? Yes. Did that take a toll and make me ready to exit my business? Yes. Once we made it past, because I never went into the company thinking I was going to exit, which is why I could actually tell you how to do it better. Now, I thought I was going to build an iconic brand that would last timeless, and that's truly what I thought in my heart and soul. And so selling it when the time came, it actually did feel like a death and a rebirth. But you also then learn through that you are not your business. You are nothing, like no material thing. You are so much more. You are source. You are here to create and create again, and to change and to evolve. And the only thing that we can't gain is when we stay the same. and we're not supposed to stay the same. It's forward. I truly believe there is no good or bad. There's just lesson and forward expansion. It's expansion into who you truly are, the essence of who you are, your unique gifts, skills, strengths, all together. And we keep expanding. And so if your business doesn't reach exit, if it provides you forward growth and expansion, it's a huge win. You don't need that, that the first time around, second time around, or you may decide that a career path and a job working for another company is better suited for where you are in your family and your life. There is no ticket to happiness other than the inner work. And that's all, like, I really want to, that's the only one thing I want you guys to walk away with more than anything. Okay.
Yeah, the inner work.
Yep.
Love it. Let's touch on what you said. Like, you came out of the pandemic and you were like, it's time to be done with this. So did Ari feel the exact same way at the exact same time? And like, how does the conversation just even start in the first place? So
I think that's she was much more ready than me. I believe she was ready, and I believe I knew I didn't want to do it without her. Like, there's too much Ari, Jill. It's almost like, we created this together. It's like our baby's going off to college, or, it's evolving to its next stage. And I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else. So I was exhausted. I think I could have hung in there, but I was empty, but I would have hung in there for the wrong reasons. Because the fun came out of it. I wanted to move into the things that could allow my purpose of helping others. From all the lessons I've learned, I wanted to use that. And once you build a business and your growth, you're a CEO, the product is created, especially in a franchise system. I couldn't bring in some of the inner work or the aligned, methodology that I do with leaders. And you can't do all of the creative things that I once was able to do because it's set, it's too big. And you have to follow a system. You have a large, employee base, and it becomes a different skill set. And I'm more of a visionary creator. And I like to be tangible. Like the priceless part of running the business was the individuals that told me, I helped them through a divorce, or I helped them with their eating disorder, or I helped them. That's the priceless stuff that fueled me to keep going, and that's what got me through the pandemic.
So you both are like in that roughly at the same time. You're like, we're done with this. Now, is it like you thought it into the universe and all of a sudden a buyer showed up at your door? Like it was like, we want to sell. And then bar 3 was like, here we are. Or did you start sending out inquiry emails? Did you hire a third party to source for you? What is the process of actually getting people interested in the business?
Well, I'll tell you again, hindsight's 20/20, but at the peak, so you think about a business, you're not going to be able to time your sale. You can't time it, right? It's like trying to sell a stock and, at the peak, or, you just can't. We had multiple opportunities. Like, we would get people reaching out to us, and we had multiple opportunities to sell or, take an investment pre-pandemic. And some of those, it's like that sliding door moment. Like, I wonder what would have happened. But again, I also think at that point, I had to keep my ego in check because we were so high on ourselves a little bit, because everything was just growing. And in hindsight, I think there was a lot of ego wrapped in it. Like, oh, we don't need them. We don't need that, And now knowing what I know, I'm like, that could have been a really excellent partnership. And it was another partnership with a big chain who and this was like 6-7 years into the business. So that's interesting. Like I said, so you have to really check yourself too, and know that, you don't know what's going to happen. So when we were interested, the good thing about the pandemic is it made the competitive, like I would have never talked to Sadie Lincoln or, the guys at Anytime Fitness or these, like, we weren't friends until the pandemic. And we were all like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. So we became friends. And, a lot of, I would say many people, the founders, truthfully were feeling like we felt, right? And so we all had this ecosystem to lean on each other, even though we're direct competitors. And so that started to see the natural fit between, I knew for the owners of my business, you can't just, I didn't want to do a transactional, leave them to a larger chain. They needed a mother figure of the business, like a heart of the business. And Sadie had a very similar story to mine, and her why was very similar. And we started to see their core values, and there was just all these similarities. And the states they were in were the opposite states we were in, and there was just this excellent opportunity. But we had multiple deals we were working through at the same time.
Okay, so whether it was the multiple deals or Bar 3 specifically, like, can you walk us through, like, functionally what's happening during this time? Because you still have to run the business as if it's not going to happen, right?
Yes.
And then is it like you're just like, okay, here's a download of like our last 5 years of financials? Like, what do you have to like produce in this time?
It took like over a year. It was like a long courting process. We fortunately had partners with Franworth who had a whole team that was dedicated to helping pull together the financials. The greatest thing you can do is from the beginning is just to keep your books clean, get your systems in place. Like the more prep work and system work, now with AI, you have no excuse to get your ducks in a row, just the better you are prepared, because they look under every nook and cranny, and any contracts or, agreements, vendor agreements, all of that, is exposed, and, your taxes and just everything. So fortunately, we were pretty good in that arena. And so that was excellent, but there's a lot of negotiating back and forth. There's a lot of meeting. We had to fly out to Portland multiple times. The other people, we were, like I said, there was other conversations happening as well. So there was no time to do the other work. And as you mentioned, Raj, that's the hardest part, is like you're running this company, but this is like a full-time job trying to sell your business. And then you also don't want the other people to know you're doing this, because you can't, especially in my culture, like that was like not going to be okay. So it was a dance, believe me. And that even made us more excited for the exit, because you're just exhausted, because you're doing the day job and the night job. It's back in that founder, like it's back in that 1 million range or COVID range where it's nonstop.
So do you think, like, because you have both had that moment of like mentally, like you were ready to move on, but then it took a year, was this the thing that was almost like the carrot that was being dangled of like, okay, I'm like into it now, just to be able to get to this milestone?
Yeah. I think we both just outgrew the roles. We were mothers of, I have 4 children. She has 2, and we were just ready. And that's it. There was this readiness that was undeniable. I talk about we have the inner critic in the mind that will tell you you're not good enough, do it now, or, do it later, all the negative voice. And then there's this gut instinct, this intuition. It's the goosebumps you get when you meet somebody and there's a reason, or it's just, there's this knowing and you can't put your finger on it. And I think that when it comes to your business and decisions, there's a lot of science, yes, because the numbers and everything, it needs to make sense. But then there's got to be this unknown tangible that you just have this feeling that it's right and it's time.
One of the things you mentioned in the previous response was you need to have your ducks in a row. So like, can you name is it like just like P&L, balance sheet, or like what are the actual, or a sample of like the ducks someone needs to have in a row?
Yeah, everything. So all of your entity structures, your financials, your legal documents, your vendor agreements, your cap tables, your, everything. So think of everything that you have tied your business name to needs to be there, plus your P&Ls and your financials for years back, taxes for years back, everything.
Are you also like showing them operational playbooks, or does that happen after the sale?
Yes. I didn't even think about that. So everything that they looked through, so we had, our intranet, our internal hub for all of our instructors, and we had, hundreds and hundreds of instructors come through the studios, thousands, and their training material, because we also had multiple businesses. It wasn't just the physical space, but we also had the online business. We had retail. We had training, certification. All of that generated revenue, and anything that touches either your employees and or your customer, they would go through and vet and see what is, what assets do you have? What are you bringing to the table to value your company as well? There's some intangibles that come with the multiple. Obviously, you can go straight off revenue, obviously, but then there's also other valued assets and
like community doesn't have a dollar figure, but it does have value.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
So are they factoring, there's something that they're factoring in, saying like, well, there's a community here, so that is worth something?
Yeah, well, that's your power, your negotiating power, so you want to have just the more organized you're with every single thing that has a value to your business, you want to showcase. This is about putting your best foot forward. You're trying to get your greatest multiple, and you need to show all of it and have the confidence. The other thing is, it's the confidence. You have to sell the confidence of the product and or the service to the next level. It's not just where they're at. They're also buying the future of the company or the future of the assets or the future of the community, right? And so part of your job is to showcase that. It's not just the what is, but what am I going to get in 5 years from this, right?
Did they then like actually interview some of your customers to understand?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How do you then, like, because you said you got to play this close to the chest, right? And not make it a public story.
They did secret shopping, right? Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Sneaky. All right. So what I've learned so far is don't use your business as a money laundering front, especially if you want to exit, because it will come out when they do the financial review.
That's right.
Can you talk about have you all heard this trope, like the cobbler's kids don't have shoes? You've heard that before, right? Like the cobbler's so busy making other people's shoes, his own kids don't have shoes. Did you have any like you're running a fitness business, but were you like, I don't even have time for myself to work out? Or were you still taking a bar class every day?
No, I mean, the pandemic time, yeah, sure, that was hard. But every other time I was like, I would make time. I believe, I started this business because I know that the mind and body are truly connected, and it's the home to your soul, right? So, and it's, when we're aligned, mind, body, and soul, it's the greatest gift that we can give to give ourselves to the world. So I make time for myself. The COVID era is like a blackout. I don't think it, like nobody could.
We all just cried.
Yeah. But regularly, I would. I mean, sure, there was times where you have to put your head down and you can't do it, but we would really try to make time for ourselves, because you got to practice what you preach. You can't, you fake it till you make it. Yes. You create a business around a need you have, but then it disciplines you to practice what you preach, right? Which was my why, right? I needed to believe in myself and love who I was and not want to change me to be anything but who I was. And so I had to show up and do that, right? I can't, you gotta walk the talk. So yeah.
I'll tell you actually from the COVID thing we were just talking about. So I mentioned earlier, I'm a part-time yoga instructor, and now I just teach one class a week. But I was teaching like maybe 5, then that cut down to like 3 during COVID. Mm-hmm. And I was in a 1-bedroom condo, and I'm like streaming these classes. And I got to a point where I was like, if I have to fucking stare at my stove while teaching yoga one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. And I have to I'm like almost hitting like the island countertop every time I go into downward dog.
Oh yeah. We'd have like kids going by like screaming and like dogs barking. And we're like, sorry. Yeah. but it also brought us human. One thing in my journey for self-confidence, it's not the perfection that people love. It's the authentic. I know it's so cliche, but it's still so hard for humans to be just so real about. No one is perfect. Everything has its perfect imperfections. And it's the imperfections that when we showcase that really draw people to who you are and what you're trying to do. And owning those imperfections is what we're here to do. And that's how you reach success, is own your imperfection and use it as fuel to help make the world a better place.
To that point, actually, even the studio would when they make the Instagram post for my class, they'd literally be like, "Come do yoga with Raj in his kitchen." They did that. They leaned into it. They own the imperfection. And I will say, just for everybody here, regardless of what you were doing at that time, I think we had this pandemic, and then we reopened, and then we just kind of moved on with life. And I don't know how many of us have stopped to just be like, we actually lived through that. And that was insane that we did. And we're alive. One, we have our health, which is good. But also just take a moment to just realize we all collectively lived through the worst period in human history since the plague. So there's a 1 in 800 year occurrence there for being disaster.
Let's keep it that way. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, what's this hantavirus now?
I know you want to talk about it. We're not bringing that subject up.
Okay, so one of the things that you're advising founders on now is their own leadership qualities and how they are showing up to their business. And as you think about where you were at and what the advice you're giving now, as in the context of building a exit ready business. Maybe there's pillars that are there's the psychology side, or maybe the psychology leadership side, the values side, and the operational side. Is that the triangle? And if so, is it a equilateral triangle? Is it a right triangle? Is it a scalene triangle for those who remember their geometry? What is the proportion, if you will?
Well, the most important thing is just your specific individual vision map, if you will. So it's really looking at the founder and their understanding of their why, their core values, and a snapshot into where they are today and what they want, right? And so it's about clarity. So a lot of the work I do actually, rather than looking at your business, because the business is a reflection of the founder or the leader. And so when we work at the leader level and the individual level, and they get really clear about who they are, how they want to show up, what fuels them, where their value is, they believe their value is seen most, and they actually put it onto paper and go through the exercise of understanding where their value comes from every day to stop prioritize where they spend their time, et cetera, et cetera. So it's about getting first clear on the individual. Then we map it to what the state of the business. And those two things go hand in hand. It's about driving the mission of you as a soul and your purpose and your desires in your life, and making sure it aligns with the state of the business. And when those things start to go out of line, one thing happens. You either shift the business or you shift yourself. Something has to change, right? And so I don't look at it as operations, finance, all of things go together, and but it's first and foremost just about the individual. Okay.
All right. So
Exit Quotient Ventures. So that's the work I do outside of venture capital. Now, I am a venture partner at EQV, and I'm the founder coach. I still always take it back to the individual first. And we help support our investments. And there's sometimes where they're not through a set plan, like the aligned cohort that I run separately from EQV. EQV, when we invest in a business, then we have Brock is our numbers guy. So anything financial, we work with him. You work with him on. I'm much more of the operations marketing person, along with obviously leadership. So I work with the founder on those areas. But we have somebody on each seat that can dive in even further into specifics. Yeah.
Can you talk about the nature of EQV, Exit Quotient Ventures?
Yeah. So EQV is based out of Michigan. There's two of us out of Chicago. So two partners in Chicago, and we have three in Michigan. But we're all Michigan State Spartans, and it's a small fund. It's $5 million fund, and we write checks around 100 grand. And our thesis is it's cross industry, but it's about Midwest founders. So we're really trying to elevate the Midwest and showcase our talent here. Yes, and invest in entrepreneurs that are starting at the heart of the country. So.
Can you talk about aside from geography, like characteristics and like what are the things you're looking for or your team is looking for as you decide what to invest in? Are there like minimum requirements a company should have if they're going to talk to you?
Yeah. So we're pre-seed, seed stage, early revenue. We're really not taking anybody because we have still about 10 to 15 checks we're probably going to write for the fund, but we're really looking for revenue generating. So early revenue with projections to get there pretty quickly. Exit within a shorter exit, kind of 6 years. We're looking for a 6-year exit because of our fund date, just to time it all. But obviously it could extend, to 8 or 10, but we're looking for a shorter term growth. In addition, leaders, really passionate people about their business so that they really understand their why. And their why is wrapped around the business, but obviously then expertise in that why. So it's not just a loose passion, but it's with a solid team that has the expertise and knowledge to help get it there, right?
When you say early revenue, is that like, hey, we have like one pilot customer paying us $20,000, or is it more than that, less than that? Like, how are you guys, I guess, quantifying that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say at least like 100,000 annual recurring revenue, at least booked. We can have a conversation. Okay. Yeah.
All right, great. Exit is in the name of the firm. So is it also you are looking at them saying, and they need to tell you, we want to exit at some point, or you're looking at companies you all can like essentially coach up to be exitable?
So we only invest. So for venture, there's two things that I'm working in. So for Exit Quotient Venture, we look for companies that want to exit, that are going to be exiting. They already know, they have clarity around, they've already done this work. They know that they're going to be exiting, scaling and exiting a business. I coach many people that have no desire at this time to exit. They're just growing their business. Myself, like I said, I mentioned I didn't have an exit plan in mind, and that kind of came in. So it can change and ebb and flow. But what I will tell you, the best thing to do is, and I give this advice to the leaders I work with, is every year, annually, take your checks and balances. So, either use January as your time frame if you want, but it's really to sit down and get clear about who you are today and who you want to become, and where are you with your business, and are you satisfied? Do you want to start looking at options? Because options doesn't mean it needs to happen, but you do need to know what we just talked about before. It will take a lot of your time, but really just getting clear about how you're feeling. Like, are you happy in your business? Have you outgrown your business? What would you change about your business? And that often you find, leaders don't sit and really just take a time to reflect, a day or two to sit and think through, would I be doing this? Do I feel satisfied doing this? And if not, why? How can I change it? And then, is it time to look at alternative options? And I didn't know that, again, hindsight's 2020, but we just kind of came and took opportunities as they were coming, because they were coming at us, probably because we kept the energy up, because you gotta believe it. Like, you will not build a business to exit if you don't believe you can, so the first thing starts with belief, and everybody can feel that belief. And it's the first thing, like, even when people pitch, it's like, it's that intangible. Do I believe them? Do I believe it? Because it's a lot of belief. I mean, yes, you got to see the numbers. But when you're talking about early stage, it's not big numbers. So it is a risk, and so there's got to be this energy, if you will, of belief behind the individual and what they're putting out.
Part of that belief, or maybe an extension of that belief, from like a practical, like there's a vision side of it and there's the execution side of it. Do you think there's a certain point at which the founder should start like operationalizing their practices, like building playbooks for doing this thing within the company? Or is that like a day one thing, or is that like a day 100 thing?
I would say as soon as we did it day one, meaning you just keep iterating because you keep getting better. But I think the more you get, especially with AI tools, you have no excuse to not systematize whatever you can. And the more that you systematize, the quicker you can learn what's broken or what's not working. So, with fitness, why we were able to scale so well is like, I have the engineering background in my wheelhouse. We fixed as many variables as possible. So like back in the day, like I recorded I was like, how can I replicate myself? Because people were coming to me, right? So we would make CDs, I would tape CDs of the workout and then hand CDs out to all the instructors. And I'm like, then they would come back and teach it to me and I would give them feedback. And I was trying to fix every variable as possible, right? And so and then we built an incredible training program to build, and some of the best instructors are at like Studio 3. I don't know if anybody goes to Studio 3 here, but like some of our best instructors, they're the best now in all these other places because we created powerhouse individuals that were teaching from their truth, right? It was about how do I live it? How do I give myself to this space and teach from an authentic place with differentiating moves, right? And all that good stuff. So what I would say, why I was saying that is like the system actually is what allowed us to grow and allowed us to differentiate, find what works well and then replicate it and learn. Like, is it working? Is it not? Adjust, but systematize everything, because that's how, because if you don't and you just go, you can never look back and like, why did that work? That was amazing, right? So the more you document and you start to really see patterns, the more you can perfect the service, the product, the market messaging, the outreach, the connection, the customer journey, all of it.
Do you have any advice for a founder to be able to like almost call their own bluff? And what I mean by that is you could be tracking certain things and the numbers could not be what you want them to be, but then you could still be like, oh, but that's because A, B, and C happened. And you can like justify why it's not where it's at, which could be a misleading thought to have. So do you have any advice for how to get around that?
Yeah, I think, I'm a manifest optimist, right? Where you have to be almost delusional sometimes in your voice that you're going to make it. Like, I'm going to be the iconic brand, that's going to rule the world, to keep that North Star in mind. So like, keep your dreams up there. And then when the reality check, the key to alignment and the work that I work on is to be able to see reality, but not match the vibration, if that makes sense. So even we were talking about our children, your grandchildren. So my son, some of the work that I've been doing too, my fourth son through the pandemic was a very late talker. And I had to, part of the reason why I also wanted to exit the company, I wanted to make my kids a priority. Not that they always have been a priority because the flexibility has been around my business, but he was having challenge communicating. And so we got into OT and therapy and speech therapy, and it was all of the feelings. And, I applied the same approach where, we're so quick to categorize individuals and put labels on people when we are all unlimited, so long as we believe it. And so I kept working with my son, and let's fist pump this because this is the best news ever, better than any exit. But, he's on his way he's general education. He's totally communicating and all of that. And not, yes. But in that, as a mom, that lesson I learned is to not match the frequency of limit when I'm with my kid or I'm talking about him. So the same thing applies to business. Like, you can see reality, right? And if you see your numbers, or you're losing customers, or you got a runway of 4 months, you see it, but don't match the energy. Match the energy of what you want to outcome. And that will get you through the hard times. So it's not delusional in a sense. It's, you see it, you take action to move it, but you don't stay in that fight or flight energy. We can't create from fight or flight. We have to create from the heart. We have to create from the voice. We have to create from oneness. And so if we're in that fight or flight energy and we're trying to make things happen, we can't allow things, we can't receive, right? And so it's really about an energy shift when the numbers don't show the success.
Love it. Let's take it to the audience for a few questions. Who wants to ask Jillian a question? We'll go to Jasmine first.
So we talked a lot about the instructors. I want to hear about your experience with the franchisees, because that's super fun.
Yeah. So far, are you a franchise, or do you?
We have to talk a lot later.
Okay.
So the question was around the experience with the franchisees.
Oh, that will teach you more. I've learned more from the franchisees than I could ever have imagined. It's a very hard business because they buy into the business and you give them playbooks, but if they don't perform, it's on you. And so it was, like I said, everything's a lesson learned, but that franchise model is a hard model, very hard model, way to grow. Especially now that I know how to get cash, right? But it's also wonderful because it allows other individuals to create businesses. So, I always look at it, the positive is you're creating opportunity for all these families, creating culture, et cetera. It comes with the hardest times. And it's a balance. It's a very delicate, like if there's a bad orange, in a bucket of oranges, like it will spread like cancer. And so it's about, and you spend most of your time in franchising with the rotting oranges and not the thriving ones. But I can help you or give you some pieces of advice. But what I've learned is to bucket those oranges together and get them out of the other pack. And I didn't learn that for a long time. So you have to, you know who they are, the complaints, you just don't put them in. You actually have separate meetings for the successful franchisees. So you keep the good people around the good people because the good will thrive. And you bucket the bad. You don't want them all to die together, but you can, if one starts to heal, then you put them back over to the other, and you just pluck them out one by one. And, but that's really what was the most successful strategy that allowed us to not cause chaos throughout the entire culture.
The saying, which most people only say the first half of the saying, they're like, it's just a few bad apples. But the saying is actually a few bad apples spoils the barrel.
Yeah.
Which is an entirely different meaning than saying, it's just a few bad apples. Yes. So whether it's oranges or literally an apples to oranges comparison. You had your hand up. Let's go here.
I was just wondering, so you mentioned about like preparing to exit and that they look back years. When did you start like thinking about exiting and preparing to exit? Was it just like right after the pandemic, or were you like thinking about it for years and kind of like preparing that playbook ahead of time? What was your process for that?
We had a couple people interested in our business throughout many of the years. So we were kind of playing courting for a long time. So I had at least an understanding of what was in the diligence folders and what needed to be there. And so that was all set. We didn't have a plan in place to we just started having conversations. They were like organic conversations. It wasn't like a go to market, hand out a playbook of, hey, we're looking for an exit. It was just conversations organically. And it was like, yeah, let's see what you got. And we started just having that. So it wasn't a set plan, but if there's something specific you're looking for, if you're looking to sell your business, I can help you from a venture side. Is there anything specific or no? Is this future?
I'm just trying to understand. I work with businesses to sell. I work with an experienced fractional CFO, so he's exited businesses before. I haven't exited a business yet, but I'm understanding that stage. I work with right now I'm working with earlier stage companies.
Okay.
So moving that mindset towards what does an exit, and so getting your perspective on just in general preparing. So you talk about the financials and.
Yeah, and what I think would be really great for people that I don't see enough of is if somebody sat with them and told them where they could trigger to actually potentially get an acquisition. So what do I need? Where do I need to be? What revenue do I need to have? What would be a sizable, stake for us to start looking at places. And so we did do some of those things. Like I met with PE firms, to figure out if sometimes in early days we were too small, but it was just nice to have those conversations. I highly recommend, even if you have no desire to sell, if somebody approaches you, take the meeting, number one. Number two, if you have an opportunity to get in front of somebody, just take it. Even if there's nothing, you will learn. Because then when it's time, you'll at least be a little bit more prepared. You're going to learn some of the language. You're going to learn diligence, terms and what they're looking for. You're going to talk about, their valuation. You're going to start looking at what you're valued at. You're going to look at your multiple, what's realistic, what's the market at right now. You can also look at other businesses in that space. So I would say education, that's another, annually, just take that in with your annual sit down when you're reflecting on where you are, what's the state of the business, then see, hey, is there anywhere I can go to see what my value truly is? Because, your business is only true value is what somebody will pay you for it, right? So on paper, you could look like you got $100 million company, but who wants it, right? And so it's also a dance of understanding that and looking at who is a buyer. Do I have relationship with that buyer? And the earlier you form relationships with that buyer, even if you're not ready or you're too small, start being friendly with them, the better it is when you actually do need to get in the door. So my recommendation would be all of those things. Take the meeting, never say no, take the meeting, put yourself out there, get introduced, look stupid and be too small for them. Who cares? I would get so many emails about acquisitions and I would just take the meeting and they were like, they're looking for $300 million business. And we're like, at that time I was like 3 million. I'm like, oh, sorry, but it doesn't matter. You get to ask questions, you meet the people you're learning and, they find you endearing because if you bring the good energy, you're like, thanks.
To add to that, even being cordial with your competition, because something they could be your requirement partner.
Yep.
It's good to be competitive, but being professional and having those relationships can pay dividends.
Yeah, set you apart.
Maybe I will take them. I get like 5 emails a day, but it's like a mass outreach, right? So I always think it's funny because in my company, right, the little description that's in a meta tag somewhere so my company is Startup Hype Man, and it's like I'm a pitch artist for startups. And then the email will be like, we specifically look to buy pitch artist company. I'm like, yeah, of course, that's the thing that you pick. So I can tell it's like a meta tag that they pulled. But you're saying just even take the meeting.
Well, reply and see. Worst they say is no. But in the world, in the universe, right? God, source, universe is so fun and funny. You can play with the universe. I have a conversation with the universe and they give me signs as to what, I get a sign as to what direction I'm going and they'll make you laugh. Meaning it sounds a little woo-woo, but I will tell you, I am a little woo-woo because that's how you get to where you are. Right. But this is the thing I was going to say. The universe can't deliver you something if you're like, oh, that's spam. Oh, that's that. just see. And then you might laugh your ass off. And because there's also humor. Like we've had so many instances that were outrageous. Like you couldn't script the things. And, like for example, the Michigan Avenue burn issue, the benefit from that was like the insurance pay for, and we were like, oh my God,
We should burn more buildings.
No, I mean like
Not insurance fraud recorded.
No, but yeah, cut that. No, but no, I mean like for, there's always something that comes from a seemingly tragedy or take an action on something that seems silly, so take it. You can't get where you're going. If you keep that realm of desire and possibility up there, anything that comes across your plate, just humor yourself. If you look foolish, if they're like, oh no, I didn't know what Startup Hype Man was. I was looking for a technology company that was whatever. And you're like, oh, I just, sorry. Who cares? Like they did the same thing with us. They're like, what is the Barre Code? I'm like, you reached out to us. Yeah. I'm like, if you don't know how to, yeah. But like, so just.
I thought you specialized in Barre.
Yeah. So humor yourself. The other thing is don't take yourself too seriously. Like we are meant to live a life of fun. And that's what I love about you and your community. Like we're here to have fun. Show up, sprinkle your stardust. Like you impact one person, amazing. You want to generate more value and create abundance for yourself, become that abundance and give fully. For Michigan State, I got an honorary doctorate of business and I was the commencement speaker. And for 10 years, how I was able to do that, for about 10 years, out of the grace of my heart, I would go there and just give my time. Like today, I would give my time and work with their entrepreneur group. And everyone would be like, what are you doing this for free? Like, why do you do this? And I'm like, I don't know. I just want to help. I want to help. Like, I didn't know at Michigan State what an entrepreneur was. Like everybody should have this path. And so I poured my heart into that and helping them with zero expectation. And after I sold my business, when I was like crying at home, like lost with identity, the president of Michigan State called me to tell me I was being awarded an honorary doctor of business and to speak on stage. So life has full circle moments. The universe is always working out for you if your intention is pure and you're there to do good in the world. And if you take yourself out of it and you do it for something larger than you, like there is no cap limit. You will blow the limits. The minute you start to align with me, this is mine, this is I, this is ego, that's when shit shuts down. So take the call, take the meeting, bring the energy you want to feel into every space you enter. You want to see miracles? Believe there's miracles. You want to see miracles? Be the miracle. And that's it. Like, and have fun because life is short. I will tell you, I'm coming to the halfway mark of the century. You got a couple more years. I know, it's so crazy. Okay, I'm just aging myself. Cut that too. But if I could do I wouldn't do any of it over because it got me to where I am today. But if I could tell my younger self just to not take yourself so seriously and to have fun and believe in yourself and share your gifts, your uniqueness, the awkward moments of who you are, the things that you always wanted to change, that's where magic comes.
We'll do one more audience question, then I got a couple I want to close out with. Serena, you were the first person to show up tonight, so I want to give you the opportunity.
So I have two questions. You were kind of talking about like how you're creatively trying to market in the very beginning, just trying to get people in the door. I'd love to learn more about that because I'm a wellness provider and I don't really have a team. It's just me, myself, and I. And Meta Ads was an absolute crapshoot for me, so I'm just trying to get advice from people who took other avenues to get people in the door. And then my next question for you is, it was really inspiring to hear you talk about the feedback you would get from clients about how it's like made a positive impact on their life and they were sharing that with you. I'm having this experience right now where I'm getting amazing feedback from people about the value that they're getting from my services, but I'm not always seeing them come back and I don't feel comfortable feeling salesy and be like, why are you coming back if you said that you loved it? So I'm just curious if you had ever run into that, if people gave you feedback like that and then didn't show up again, and if that did happen, like what kind of approach you took to encourage them to come back.
Let me just repeat the questions first, just so we capture it on the recording. So the first question was around creative marketing in the very, very early days to get customers. The second question was about if you get a customer who has a really positive experience, but then does not become a repeat customer, did you do anything to try and win them back, or did you just let them go?
Okay. For the two questions, the first one is just get very clear on your value and how you're pitching. He's the guy if anybody needs help on pitching.
Thank you.
But it's really understanding how you're positioning your value so that people are clear as to what you're providing to them in the conversation. They know what they're going to get, they know what you're about, and it's clarity. When you have a clear message, if it resonates, if it doesn't resonate with people, this is where, again, you got to go back to that positive thinking and the abundance mindset, like not lack. Don't hold on to like losing a customer. If a customer is like going away, then that they're not fit for what you're doing. But the world there's so many people out there, and so don't let yourself look at a lost individual, because you choose the narrative in your mind that you're going to tell yourself. And then what I would tell myself is like, oh, they'll be back, or they have, you can make up the story. Say, oh, they have, so you can tell your own story. And often if you leave it in a positive light, they might come back, right? For facts, you want to learn though, so if it's truly about the service offering, then you need to let go of your ego and go with the intention, I want to learn all I can about what I can do better. And then take that feedback, use it to get more clear about the service, the approach, and how you're providing your offering or service, and adjust. But don't let that energy drop, like that feeling of sadness or lack or loss, like let it be just what it is. Try to catch yourself. It's hard because, but that's it. I mean, the emotional scale, that the higher frequency, the higher abundance that we pull in. So when there's a sense of lack or less or needing to retain, we can't allow flow, right? And just keep repeating to yourself. Another great exercise that I have clients do is every day write down what you're working on, where your limiting belief is. So for you in that question, I would say the limiting belief is a full funnel of clients coming in the door. Because when you do, you don't care about who's staying, right, at that time. So you write down like your statement every day. Every day in the morning, you write it down. I will have an abundance of funnel flow to my wellness business, period. Next day, you still write it. And so at least that helps your nervous system get comfortable with loss because you're okay with it because they're all coming in. So it's about rewiring the nervous system. And we're all built when we're building for lack, or when something's going wrong, we string to the lack and like fix and push rather than, rewire for allowing.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah. No, I can really appreciate that because I am working on not thinking in terms of lack and trying to change the narrative and everything. It's just that I have seen this very specific pattern happen enough times where I was curious if other people have had the same experience. Because usually like
and yes,
an in-person dialogue or it's a text conversation the next day where I'm getting tremendous like specific feedback about how much value they got, and then I do get an expectation in my head that they'll be returning, and then
they don't.
when they don't, then I'm like,
I can add to this
that's
too.
okay, but if I keep seeing this pattern, is this telling me something that I need to be adapting or doing differently? Because I am seeing this happen a lot.
And so I would say two things. That happens a lot just in fitness, right? And there's a lot of people that aren't ready to commit, or they're hoppers, or they have different time. There's so many things that each individual has going on that it could equate to the not coming back. So your job is to not figure out the why for each individual. It's to, while they're there, or give them an opportunity to give you constructive feedback. Don't worry about their specific situation. Worry about if it's something that you're doing within that service that is making them not want to come back. And how you can do that is you want to capture it right while they're there, you know? So even if it's in the physical space, you know, if you give them a form to fill out and you give them a drink, or you give them some kind of incentive or something towards their next class, you know, even if they don't come back, give them some incentive to fill out a feedback form, you know, but don't pay attention to the why. And if it's recurring, I mean, that's just recurring. And, you know, wellness and fitness is a funnel heavy. You gotta always have a funnel coming in. So it's just the nature of the game. You know, retention is amazing, yes, but you always got to have the intake coming in as well. Okay.
Quick thing I'll add is take a look to Jillian's first point around like the value prop, essentially. Are you positioning it as a repeat purchase thing or as a one-time thing? So you have to be able to put in people's minds that this is like an investment in themselves, and the best results happen over 3 months or 6 months or things like that. So if you kind of make it known up front that it's not like a cute thing you try once, some people will do that, but you might start to you're basically creating the outflow that you want based on how you're positioning it up front. And then also just kind of look at like, do you have an easy way for them to buy the next thing? Or is there a logical step 2 after they've had the initial experience that's not the exact same thing, but is the progression? These are all the things that make people...
the customer journey.
Yeah, exactly. Think through the customer journey.
Yeah.
Okay, so before I ask my final question, Jillian, I want to give you an opportunity to share what's going on with Alignable, and you have your cohort coming up.
Yeah.
Whoop.
Oh, okay. So yeah, there's 2 ways. Anybody that needs any advice, I love working with entrepreneurs. So reach out. There's 2 major areas that I could help you with. One is in the venture space. So EQV is accepting
meetings.
Yes. Thank you. Meetings. And we do those weekly on Wednesdays. So anybody that is looking for capital raise, the 2 requirements is just early revenue, pre-seed or seed stage, and Midwest founders. And so you can reach out to me for that. I think on the slide, somebody put it together for me. Yeah, my Instagram and my LinkedIn's there. So you guys can message me, et cetera. Or this form is just aligned is the work that I do with leaders and entrepreneurs coaching. And my partner and I, Chris Saras, who's been coaching businesses and entrepreneurs and leaders for over 30 years. Him and I work together, and we do these cohorts where we bring small groups of people together to really work on the inner work and help their business excel. And they're super fun. They are commitments. So talk about offering. It's a 6-month commitment because it's not a one and done. It's about building sustainable habits and really helping you decouple where you need to work so that your soul can better serve its purpose and you can feel aligned and happy and thrive. So if you're interested in any of those cohorts or just to speak to me, this doesn't go anywhere but to me. So you're not going to be on a mailing list or anything. That is just a quick form that talks about your name, your email. And then if you just put your business and what you're looking for, then I can either reach out to you that way and either A, tell you about the cohorts we're having that you may be interested in, or B, if there's anything else that I can aid in your journey, I'd be happy to help.
Awesome.
Cool.
I want to make a quick announcement as well before I ask the final question to you about what's coming up next at Startup Grind Chicago. Our next event is June 16th. It's called Works in Progress. This will be an opportunity to almost like think of it as like a startup show and tell. You'll be able to show off your product, but get direct feedback from people in the room, talk about something you are specifically challenged with in your development, your design, your strategy, whatever that might be. You get to crowdsource feedback. That event will be led by our very own Sid and Brittany. Is that event page going live tonight or is it in a couple days? The event page is now live, and
Sign
the
up.
first 5 tickets are just $10. So if you get that now, you'll get the best deal. On July 21st, so the week of July 20th is Tech Chicago Week. So expect a lot of activity happening with events throughout Chicago across all the different communities. For Startup Grind, we're having an investors-only event, meeting investors, cocktail tasting.
I should be there.
Yes. And then also on July 22nd, the next day, we have our annual Pitch Battle and Summer Party. This is a super fun event. It's like our second biggest event of the year. About 100 people come out for that, and we'll have the page and the application to pitch live. It's a very fun event where the founders who get picked get 3 minutes with no slides, and everyone in attendance gets handed a wad of Monopoly money, and you all play investor for the night, and the winner of the competition is the one who raises the most money from the room. And then on July 23rd, where's Sid at? Hiding behind the curtain. Where'd you go? Oh. Okay, there's Sid. So Sid has launched, or is about to launch, a new app called Milna. It's a community building app, and he's going to have his launch party on July 23rd.
Go
so
Sid.
Be on the lookout for that event as well. And it's not up here, but looking ahead all the way to August 19th, one of our regular community members, they're not here tonight, is a company named Collars. Sherry and Rocco are the co-founders. Some of you may have met them before. They competed last month in the U.S. Championships for a huge event called Code Launch. It was a private closed-door pitch event. It'll be aired as a YouTube live stream on August 19th, where the viewing audience is the voter to determine who the U.S. champion is, who will advance to the World Championships later in the year. So we're going to have a watch party for Collars and hopefully get them a ton of votes, and that'll be happening on August 19th. That's your upcoming Startup Grind menu and list. All right, so Jillian, my final question. So we're going to post this on YouTube, but we're also going to put it into my own podcast audio feed. Startup Hype Man Presents, the GOAT to Market show, available on all podcast platforms, whether it's Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, the final question I always ask in that show, which I want to ask you here today, is fill in the blank. Entrepreneurship is blank.
I was going to say life. The reason why I say life, it's living. Life is ups and downs and twists and turns and dead ends and monumental moments that we strive to achieve. And it teaches you that is life. And entrepreneurship is living from heart and purpose and trying to help the world be a better place. So I see entrepreneurship as a way of life.
Love it. Entrepreneurship is life. Just as we brought her on stage, we're going to send her off in the same way. So everybody, if you could please stand up. And one more time, give a huge round of applause to Jillian Lorenz.
Thank you, guys. And there's nothing special about me. I'm just as equally special as each of you. So I encourage you to show your beauty and make your mark on the world.
Amazing. Thank you. All right, everybody, you can mix and mingle for a little bit longer. We have a ton of food, so please eat. We have the room until when, Sid? 8:30-ish. We got to be out of here 8:30. So we got like 15 minutes to continue to mix and mingle.